Welcome back in, everybody, to Speaking of the Devils, NJ.com's YouTube destination for all things New Jersey Devils. I'm your host and Devils reporter, Ryan Novozinsky, joining you right here once again from my home studio in Ewing, New Jersey. Guys, we have our first exclusive interview on the books today. We have Devils assistant GM Dan MacKinnon joining the show. We asked Dan for the latest on some of the Devils prospects, some of the important youngsters on the team. So I would say some of the more burning questions facing the team right now, including why didn't the team make a big trade this summer? Why didn't they go acquire that top six forward that a lot of fans have been clamoring for? And what they might do, to plan around Jonathan Kovacevic, who's going to be back on the roster at some point. That $3.8 million is going to be, back on the books at some point as well. We also get into how Luke Hughes has looked after the holdout. Does the organization, what are their expectations for him after missing all of training camp? Couple quick programming notes before we get into this. We recorded this before some of our new equipment came in, so the audio, the video the quality of the video might not be up to standard. That will not be the standard going forward. You're going to have much better quality content going forward, but this, we had to get this in because we really wanted to talk to Dan MacKinnon before this season started. We also recorded this before LaChance was sent down to Utica. So the first, one or two questions I think might be a little dated info-wise, but Dan still gives a whole bunch of very relevant and revealing info in his answers. So I encourage you listening to that. If you want to skip over that, there are timestamps in the YouTube section below. So click on those to skip over that. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Our interview with Devils assistant GM Dan MacKinnon. Well, Dan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being the first one to join us here on our new podcast venture, Speaking of the Devils. I'm sure you have a lot to speak to Devils fans about, so we're really glad that you took the time today.
Good to be with you, Ryan.
So, Dan, I'm going to start with the guy that a lot of people are talking right now, which is LaChance, a guy that has now grinded his way onto the opening night roster here, BU's captain. Where the heck do you find this guy? Are you surprised that he was able to grind his way onto the roster and really make a name for himself this quickly?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a unique story in that, some of your listeners may know, his father, Scott LaChance, is a longtime employee of ours. He's our head of amateur scouting, along with Mark Dennehy, former NHL player, former New Jersey Devil, actually. So Shane, his son, was a late round pick some years ago to the Edmonton Oilers, continued his development in Youngstown and then on to BU. And you're always following other teams' prospects. It just happened to be that Shane was the son of one of our employees and also a good friend of ours in terms of Fitz and I. And what you saw in Shane was a real big body, a raw young prospect when he was drafted. Sort of start to grow into his body and develop some really good, what I call pro habits for a potential power forward. His net front game was a thing that was coming along so noticeably at the college level, and something was sort of absent in our pipeline. A big young forward that had some good hands, was willing to play around the net, battle for space, recover pucks, tip pucks. We thought maybe that had a chance to be Nolan Foote. It didn't work out that way. So we prioritized going to the deadline last year, trying to get someone else to fill that role. And some indications were that Edmonton and Shane and his camp, may not be able to come to terms. So we reached out to Stan Bowman and were able to get a deal done prior to the trade deadline last year, and the rest has just been great so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a role that a lot of teams are pretty much at all times looking for, a fourth liner who's a little bit of a grinder, a little bit of skill, and in LaChance's case, obviously a bunch of size there at 6'5". Are you surprised at all at how quickly he's been able to pop here? With him again making an opening night roster.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you never know. We got a little glimpse in Utica the last two games of last season where he came in and played the American League. So you never know how quickly a player is going to make the adjustment. And in full disclosure, his path is probably going to be a combination of Utica and the New Jersey Devils this season. But you're right. Somebody that can play on the fourth line, but then also have the ability to potentially play on the power play at the net front or take some low zone, offensive zone type faceoffs as a winger where he's got a great chance to recover that puck and keep things alive. This is how we project him. He's worked really hard to continue to develop his skating, which is one of the areas he had to work on from the time he was drafted moving forward. So credit to Shane. He's done everything on his end to make himself a prospect, maybe even faster than people realize.
Dan, a quote that I've been admittedly recycling over and over again over the years is something that you told me when we discussed Arseny Gritsyuk 3 years ago now in Dallas. You and I were down in Dallas, and it is you basically said that this is a guy that immediately the name that popped to your mind is Kirill Kaprizov, right? This is a guy that can kind of come over from the KHL and pop in the lineup and won't need much time cooking down there in the AHL in Utica. So my question, I guess, for you is, when are you guys going to be paying Arseny Gritsyuk $17 million per year? I'm joking. I'm totally joking. No, my real question for you is what are your expectations for this kid? How quickly can he become a top six wing too? And is that the goal? Because I feel like that's his skill set. Is that the end goal for him in this lineup this year, is to elevate to that top six?
Honestly, I think it's going to play itself out here. We're very happy with the camp he had. In our opinion, opinion of the coaching staff, Sheldon, Fitz, myself, management, is that he's ready to play in the NHL. Now, as the regular season starts, and we all know regular season's different than preseason, the amount of minutes, the type of load, the exposures that he's going to be able to succeed under is what we're going to find out. I mean, right now he's penciled in, playing with Cotter and Glendening on that fourth line, but may get some opportunities to pop up higher in the lineup. So I think it is gonna play out. But to your point, in terms of how he got to us at this stage, I believe he's a 2000 born, 25-year-old player, was, I still believe this, some of those higher skilled, production type forwards that are drafted out of Russia, it may still be the better path for them to play in the KHL over there, play in meaningful roles and produce until they have that confidence level and physical maturity to come over and compete for a job in the NHL right away. That just seems to be the way it works out more smoothly. Kaprizov is obviously an incredible example in terms of how well it worked out for him. But I look at a guy who's on our team right now, and this answers the second part of your question with Dodonov. He's a guy that came over early after he was drafted. It didn't go great for him. He was up and down with Florida, mostly in the American League. He went back, matured in the KHL for another several years. And when he came over again, right about the same age as Arseny Gritsyuk now, he's had a great NHL career from that point forward. Now he's 36 years old. And honestly, Gritsyuk's a guy who should look up to Evgeny and realize, like, watch how he plays, watch how he reads the game. A lot less ice to work with here in the NHL in terms of just the physical size of the sheet, but also how quickly teams get on you. It's probably, in fairness, like the most aggressive style defending he's going to have seen to date. But that would be our hope, that over the long term, we have Evgeny signed with us for a year here, that he can start to pick up some of that load in the top six, to your point.
Dan, let's stay in Russia. Obviously, you guys have a couple guys there, Daniil Orlov and Anton Silayev. Just your top pick from just a number of years ago. Daniil Orlov having a really strong start to the season points wise, and then Anton Silayev, doing fine in the defensive end, but 0 points so far. I guess let's start with him. Is there any organizational concern for that ozone production? I know he's more of a defensive defenseman guy, but just curious to gauge the organization's thoughts on this.
Yeah, no real concern in terms of the offensive production. Obviously, you'll always take goals and assists and production from any position once a player gets to the National Hockey League. But our projection of Silayev is much more that robust physical defender who has the mobility to take away time and space on the long stick and then can mobilize the puck up the ice. Points are not something that we're worried about with him. Especially the role he's playing with on his team there right now. It's just for him to continue to develop physically, continue to work on his skating, And so that when he comes over here, maybe he needs a little more time in Utica, but he's pretty darn close by the time he gets over here.
There you go, and then Orlov, obviously a guy that a lot of fans are excited about having a good season there in the KHL.
Yeah, he's a nice player, more of a well-rounded D. Probably translates to more of a defensive D if and when he makes the jump to the National Hockey League, and also could be a guy to benefit from defending in Utica when he's ready to come over. He's signed for this year and next over there, so he has 2 more years of development over there, which is again fine by us. Bigger bodied guy, but certainly someone we consider a prospect.
Dan, the risk of putting Nico Daws on waivers yesterday, or I guess 2 days ago, or whenever we ended up posting this, did not go unnoticed. And there were a lot of goalies on waivers, I know, but obviously a risky move. What are your thoughts on the prospect, on his outlook in the organization, and where he might fit in the grand scheme of all these goalies you have here now?
Yeah, it is a risk, but it's part of the collective bargaining agreement. Nico, as a player, has earned the right to pass through waivers with the number of years he's been a pro and under an NHL contract. We made a determination as an organization once Jake Allen expressed a strong, desire to be back with us that it was in our best interest to continue with the Markey Allen tandem, but in no way did that indicate that we wanted to lose Nico. So we were all holding our breath yesterday. But he was able to get through waivers, and we're thankful for that. And I know Fitz met with him one-on-one yesterday and had a great discussion with him that there is a long list of former starting NHL goalies that passed through waivers earlier in their career. That's just the nature of that position. It's a bit of a longer curve, so he'd be keeping really good company there. And his mission is to get down there and have, let's call it like a dominant AHL season. And that's what we've seen from AHL goalies that have pushed their way. In most recent history, you got Jet Greaves in Columbus, who was dominant in Cleveland. You've got Dustin Wolf, who was dominant with the Calgary Wranglers. Going back a little bit before that, Charlie Lindgren spent a long time in the American League before he pushed through to be part of the Washington tandem. So that's what we want to see from Nico, behind what we think will be our best Utica team in probably 3 years that we've had down there. So good opportunity and challenge for Nico.
I think that's a good way and a good point to put a bow on some of the Utica talk here, because I do think they're going to be really good, and they certainly deserve their flowers. Now to more NHL stuff with the Devils season just a day away here. I think by the time we post this, listen, things are exciting in Devils land. I think the off season was quieter, and players admit that. So, I'm not speaking really out of term here. And I think it was by design, but the vibe that I get across the league, speaking to anybody across the league over the past several months or so, is that was a byproduct of the league. Like the whole league was just completely silent. I mean, that month of August was a slog. That was awful. Did that make making a big splashy move all the more challenging? Is that the reason? Every fan, they want the top six wing, right? Everybody wants to trade for a McDavid or for a Gretzky, right? But no one across the league wants to trade a player like that. Is that the vibe that you got this offseason? And that the slowness kind of limited things for you guys inside there.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more of a challenging offseason. The cap did jump, but everyone's aware it's going to jump more significantly in the next 2 years. So there might be more opportunity to do things of a significant nature, but also just internally planning for a group. We knew there was a likelihood of a longer term contract for Luke, that we had to be mindful of. And we're pretty much a cap team now, and we've made no bones about it. So we had to manage our internal needs and make sure that we were taking care of the impact players that we have already before we went out and tried to fill something externally, that might have put us in a tough spot. And we like our team right now. It doesn't mean we're fully where we necessarily want to be by March or April. We'll see how the team goes. But to start out, I think we're confident we've got a group that can compete well in the Metro Division.
The duo that everybody will obviously be focusing on, especially nationally, is Jack and Luke Hughes. Luke obviously signed now. and Jack heading into a year where both players actually are coming off shoulder surgery. Let's start with Jack. Okay, every Devils season preview you read is, okay, the Devils can be a good team if Jack Hughes stays healthy. How determined have you seen Jack Hughes enter this season? My vantage point looks like is maybe one of his most determined yet. Curious your vantage point on that.
Well, I think he's ready for his best season to date. Everybody knows that a healthy Jack Hughes is one of the top offensive centers in the National Hockey League, and so critical to our success. He's had both shoulders repaired now. Indications are that those shoulders should be stronger than ever. He put in a good summer. I know it's an Olympic year. I mean, this is a motivated player. Big expectations for the Devils and for himself personally. I don't see any reason why we're not going to see the best version of Jack Hughes so far.
And then Luke, obviously again signed 7 years, $9 million. What gives you optimism? What gives you pause about him missing training camp? That's going to be a talking point. Everyone's going to be talking about that, right? To see, if he comes out to a hot start, if he comes out to a slow start, the training camp piece will obviously be brought up.
Yeah, it's always a topic. You saw with Dawson Mercer last year. I mean, I think with Luke and obviously there's always optimism prior to puck drop on Thursday, but he's such an elite skater. I think the one thing sometimes you do worry about when there's missed time is just that pace. I don't worry about that with Luke. I don't think anybody does. He's a player who's going to be able to jump in and play at a high NHL pace. We hope that any adjustment to the timing of the game or stuff that you gain over a few weeks in training camp comes quickly for him. But there's just no two ways about it. He's right in there at the top of our decor on day one, and the challenge is on him to not miss a beat as well.
Last two for me, Dan. At some point, Jonathan Kovacevic is going to be back in this lineup. And listen, like with that comes that $3.8 million cap hit that's now off the books because of LTIR. It's going to be back on the books. Listen, I know that this is months down the line. You don't have to get into specifics, but how confident are you, I guess, in the front office's plan to address that? Because at some point it's going to need to be addressed.
Yeah, well, you're right. We don't have to get into specifics because it's actually an opportunity. We look at it to fully evaluate what we have prior to Jonathan coming back in the lineup, and that's how we look at it. Is Covey will be back likely in the new year, and we have a great opportunity in the fall here to really dial into, okay, what do we think our true strengths and weaknesses are? Because he's going to be part of our group when he comes back. He's an important piece. But in terms of how we accommodate that and any moves we make, we have time now to evaluate more than just over the summer or the first month of the season.
All right, last one for me, Dan. It's an on the spot one, but it's like a fun on the spot one, I promise. So I remember a couple years ago, Tom talking about a story. I forget if it was a signing or if it was a trade. I think it might have been the John Marino trade, where he was at Fenway Park at a concert whenever the John Marino trade went down, and that's where he negotiated it. So my question just for you, as assistant GM, what is the weirdest spot? Do you have any weird anecdote that you have for us about some sort of weird location you were in while a trade went down or while you made a trade, anything like that?
I've done depth deals, minor league deals while I was, in restaurants late at night in Europe, because of the time difference, right? 6, 8 hours, depending on where you are. But nothing jumps out like off the top of my head where, oh, well, that was just such a strange place to be to do a transaction. Honestly, Ryan, you just get so used to working on the phone over different time zones with agents based on their availability that nothing surprises me.
Amazing. Well, hey, that's still a really good story. And at that, we will not take up any more of your time today, Dan. Thank you again for being our first guest ever here on once again our very first foray into podcasting. We really appreciate your time, man.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Good to be with you.
So there you have it, folks. There was our exclusive one-on-one interview with Devils assistant GM Dan MacKinnon. Happy that Dan was able to join the show. Always good to have get a front office perspective. And there was a lot of stuff to chew on in there, which we will be chewing on over the next couple of weeks and months, because there was a lot of long-term stuff even in there as well. Until then, as you guys know, as I mentioned earlier in the show, we will be going live tonight from Raleigh, North Carolina, from the Lenovo Center after the Devils take on the Carolina Hurricanes, after the press conferences are wrapped up. I will be going live here. So be sure to set your notifications, turn those notifications on, turn my Twitter notifications on at Ryan Novo NHL, and we're going to have a good time in the post-game live stream. Cannot wait. I will see you guys then.